So let us welcome us that are online day, Miss Rita and
Hello.
Miss Tasha. Miss Monica might be on her way. As you guys have been listening on Facebook, she is doing a master's degree, so got lots of assignments to hand over, and she's trying to put her books away so she can join us in this fabulous conversation. My name is Madeline Johnson. Tonight, we are going to continue from where we left off on our conversation on mental health in the Black community. We know that's a key element of change is through acknowledgement, embracing the facts, delivering, and having the ability to measure our incidences and adaptations. Mental health, how does it impact our Black men and their relationship is the question for tonight. And in that question, we have questions. So ladies, why is it a taboo subject?
I think it's a taboo subject because people just don't want to admit, they don't want to accept the fact that they've got a mental health issue because of stigmatization. They think that if they do come forward with that information, people look at them in a different light. So with that, they have the tendency to withhold that information and keep it to themselves, which is not good, which is not healthy for them anyway, because it makes matters worse. So good to come forward with the information so you can get the help needed.
But I also think it's the fact that people are so scared because they've heard of horror stories, and that way you've got like people are being admitted and straight away they're being locked away, given all these drugs that are gonna medication that's gonna make them a lot worse and make them be paranoid and all these things. So it kind of puts people up, and then they think, will I ever actually be released and things like that. So some people would rather just hide it and try and deal with it themselves than go out there and have help.
That's true. And having said that, the last 2 weeks we look at the cause and effect of mental health. Follow us in the last few weeks while discussing this subject. What are some of the cause and effect of mental health, especially with our Black men?
I would say discrimination could be one of the causes in mental health issues. Poverty also. Even relationship can cause mental health issues.
Even like the stress of life, just in general, just like the pressure of having to always live up to this high standard. So they have to be the strong ones. They have to be the ones that are like leading from the front. So that kind of gives them that pressure as well. And some of them can't handle it.
Exactly.
That's so true. That's so true. The other day we were also looking at other factors and discriminations. We found out that some folks have been undergoing lots of issues in terms of when they are arrested. It could be for minor stuff, but because of the color of their skin, they are sectioned by police right away, depending on the circumstances. Oftentimes they are medicated beyond their wishes, in effect, build up to where they get into depression, and from depression, they just go downstream. In terms of what we've learned from all of our investigation, what can you say the impacts are or the effects are on the social and economical equalities?
Social and economic, I've got something here that I can read to you. BAME communities are also often faced with disadvantages in society. They are more likely to experience poverty, have poor educational outcomes, higher unemployment, and contact with the criminal justice system, and may face challenges accessing or receiving appropriate professional services. For example, among age 16 to 24 years old, unemployment rates are high for people from Black ethnic minority background. It says here, even when employed, men and women from some ethnic groups are paid less on average than those from other groups with similar qualifications and experiences. That's my take on the social economic inequalities.
That's a good find. What's your take on that, Tasha?
It's also like families. You'll find a lot of families are put into like poorer areas. It's kind of makes it harder for them to actually envision like that they're actually going to get out of that situation. So it ends up in a vicious cycle. So you end up, your family's on benefits, and then you might end up on benefits, or even just, it's that cycle. And then they kind of can't see no way of getting any better. So then they might turn to certain things like crime and crime and things like that. So then that ends up, so then they end up getting harsher sentences because you get, it it's a lot stricter, and there's a whole different criteria. So if a white person and a black person, they end up doing the same crime, the black person is generally gonna get a worse sentence. It's probably like triple the amount or anything like that. So then when they're in prison, they're feeling injustice, so then they're getting angry, and they might suffer with a lot of depression and things like that. So then when they do get released, they can't get no jobs, so then they're even more depressed, and it's just bringing them down.
Yeah.
So then they end up going back to what they were doing before, vicious cycle, so that they can't break out of it or anything. But and there's nowhere that actually really helps them when they do come out of prison or anything. There's nowhere, no groups or anything that's like, here, come and do an apprentice, or whatever. They just stereotype you and be like, okay, you're that kind of person, and that's all you'll ever be.
Which forces them to go back into the same thing. It's like they're going round in circles, really, because it's like the hands are tied, really. They feel like society doesn't want them, so if they're not going to give them a chance, what is the point in trying to make something of yourself? You might as well go back and do what you were before. So they end up back into prison,
and a lot of them start young as well.
It's a sad situation.
So obviously some kids, they're like, they see their parents struggling, so then they want to try and help, so then they turn to the streets because they see this whole glorified life of, oh, I can get easy money and I can help my family get out of this situation. But really, they're doing more harm than good.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they might not even have the parent at home, so then they find that kind of support and the like family unit from the wrong kind of people. It's a lot, really.
In our last show, we identified some of the byproducts of mental health factors. We concluded about how racial and discrimination can have an impact, or can be the byproduct of it, the social and economical inequalities, mental health stigmatization, which the rest of the conversation is going to be based on today, because oftentimes, even within our own community, they're stigmatized. The word mental health is frowned upon. It's kind of a taboo, isn't it? We also talked about the criminal justice system. Another factor is immigration. Based on those byproducts, what are all the advantages or disadvantages, or I should say disadvantages basically, that our black men, because we are focusing on the black men in this conversation, our black men are going through?
I mean, you have the refugee and asylum seekers. They've got a huge disadvantage, because oftentimes we find that when they do come over into the country, they're discriminated against because they don't have certain things in terms of the paper, the right to be in the country, so they don't have access to certain things like access to the health care. Most of the time you find they put them into these centers, they're not getting the help that they actually need. And this creates mental issue for them because they're not being cared for in the right way.
I want to point out to the viewers or those who would listen to this video afterwards. You might be thinking all of these things that we're highlighting, or these points that we're highlighting, cause mental illness or mental health issue. The answer is yes, because what happens to the brain, based on the research I've done, is the consistency of the issue. It puts pressure on your brain. Say, for example, as Aretha said, you're an immigrant. You come to this country, you cannot speak the language, which means getting access to certain things, even the basic needs, could be a challenge. Not understanding what to do and when to do it can put pressure on the mind. In majority of the country, the so-called first world countries, when you apply for immigration or when you come over for immigration, you might not get a status for maybe 10, 15 years, some people even longer than that. Now, you think about it. You can't speak the language. You don't have a community that can support you. You don't have papers, which means if you don't have paper, you cannot work. So all of that build up. And if even you have a community, it is not what you expected. You've left wherever you come from, whether it's from a European country or from an African country or Caribbean country. You've left your country in the hope of having a better life. And when that better life did not materialize, what it does is put pressure on the mind. You come in as normal as anyone would. After a while, you might take it as human being. You might take it, for the first year, you might say, oh, I can get on with it. Second year, third year, the doors started closing up on you, meaning no support, because if you don't have paper, you don't have access. correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, you don't have access even to health care. If you don't have paper, you don't have a doctor. So you can imagine that.
That's right.
You don't have food, except you have a community that you go into. They'll be giving you leftovers, clothing, food, and you name it. No human being in their right mind will want to live that sort of life in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So this is why we're saying immigration do have a knock-on effect on the mind, which then causes mental health, because before you know it, you start going into depression and sadness. And then, of course, maybe you start drinking or smoking or doing any other funny business. Before you know it, you go down the drain. Some people are fortunate, of course, they have people who can support them. Others don't. And worst case scenario, if you're put in the asylum facilities, it's not exactly. You're mixed with different people. You share rooms, a space like a dormitory with different people. So all of that puts a strain on you, because especially if you come from a place where, yes, you were not rich, but at least you have a dignity, and now your dignity is pushed to one side. So that's
cultural shock as well. To be fair, cultural shock when you are an immigrant and you come here, that causes a lot of stress and anxiety.
And then, of course, the mental health stigmatization, which is what I want us to focus on for the next half an hour. My question is, when we meet somebody with mental health, why are we so judgmental in our community, and what can we do to remove that biasness?
I think it's lack of knowledge. You see, we're not educated enough on that subject. Normally, growing up, you see somebody walking down the street looking a bit scruffy or whatever. You said, "Oh, he's mad," or whatever.
Yeah, he's crazy.
About it, not understanding the fullness of it and how he got there. Probably had a fantastic life before, but because of pressure of life situation or whatever, caused him to be in that situation. So I just believe that we need to be educated on this subject more and be aware of the implications.
Now, I was just going to say, our cultures makes us also feel like we make everything a joke. Everything is fun. Everything is laughter. Oh, don't worry. Oh, this, oh, that. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like sometimes we don't even really know it's mental health. That's why, maybe that's why we tend to kind of laugh at other people when we feel like maybe they are showing signs, because we're like, yeah, but you know how we always say, oh, you're strong, just get over it. It's
yourself together.
It will pass. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? It's okay. You just get, So yeah, maybe that's another reason too.
Because I remember watching a documentary on that. This lady in America, she suffered from depression, and the family at first were telling her to get over it, Oh, don't worry, everything is going to be fine. It's nothing, But luckily for her, her pastor did study psychology. He recognized her symptoms and he counseled her and gave her the help she needed.
So he didn't say pray about it, because a lot of the times there's this kind of thing of, even pastors will say, let's pray about it. Like, I have something that we're dealing with right now with my cousin, and he's going through like a mental health crisis, I guess I can call it. And it was just kind of like, oh, well, you need to take him to church and pray about it. Is the devil, is, this kind of spirits and this. And they were saying, if you do this, if you do that, it will all pass. But in actual fact, they did all of that. They paid all this money, and still it's the same thing. You had to end up going to hospital because it's a chemical imbalance. It's an actual physical medical condition. It's not something you just pray about and it's over and done with. It had to be dealt with in the right way. Like, if you cut your arm, you're not going to pray about it. You're going to do other things. It's the same thing.
I mean, with prayer does help. Also, seeking medical advice help as well. The two goes hand in hand, in my opinion. It's good that he went out and seek the help medically. Also, praying, for me personally, it does help. It calms you down and it helps the situation as well. So
prayer does help. I pray a lot, but there are times where you have to do more than just prayer. That has to be complemented by something else.
Yeah. Doesn't mean God created the doctors. As far as I'm concerned, He's the one that put them there. He wouldn't put them there for no reason at all.
If they didn't have it, exactly. Yes, they are
there for a reason. So we need to seek medical help as well as spiritual help. They both help.
I think that's a valid point, ladies, that you're making, especially because it doesn't matter what sort of Black family you come from. you are in some sort of religious belief, be it a Christian or others. I strongly think one of our recommendation is, yes, pray about it, but do seek advice. There's a common saying in America or within the Black community where they talk about shrink. If you go to psychology, you shrink. Oh no, Black people don't do that. Black people don't go to psychology. There's a separate way to treat Black people. We have colonized ourselves with that way of thinking. And it's interesting that you pointed out that pastor who is a psychologist. It is written in the Bible, in the books of Proverbs, as well as in the New Testament. You got to take care of your mental health. If you cannot take care of your mental health, you're not even fit to worship God. So I think it goes hand in hand, but it's good to talk to people that you trust. When someone comes over to you to tell you their issues or their problems, you got to learn to keep things confidential. Don't go around talking about somebody else's issues, the person confiding in you. I think for me, that's one of the biggest case that we have in our community. We don't know how to keep other people's secrets. It can be detrimental to somebody because you don't know if the person is actually suffering from mental health or not. So you cannot conclude. We have to have trustworthy people in our community, and we have to exercise patience as well with other people.
And have emotional intelligence as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Compassionate.
Absolutely. And for that person to open up to you, that shows that person trusts you. If the person didn't trust you in the first place, they wouldn't have opened up to you. Imagine that person does that, and then you, behind the person's back, go and spread it to other people that they didn't want to know the story. That is hurtful, and that makes matters worse, to be honest, because they would have a trust issue from then onwards. They wouldn't want to open up to anyone else.
Doesn't help the individual either. We have to enhance our listening skills. When somebody comes to you in confidence to tell you their issues, you got to wrap it up. My grandfather used to say, if you don't have anything good to say about somebody, just keep your mouth quiet.
Most of us enjoy a little gossip here and there, a little, fun and laughter and banter. That's just human nature. That's how we interact with each other. From my experience anyway. But sometimes we have to know when there's certain lines where some things are not worth gossiping about, because the damage you're going to cause is quite detrimental. So some things you have to just be like, okay, this is a little bit more sensitive. This is a little bit more deeper than just, so-and-so bought whatever and she doesn't have food in her house or something.
Exactly. There's a time and place for everything.
But it's also like, if, say, Monica, you were confiding in me, just like talking, I need to be able to look at you and tell the signs, like be able to say, like, okay, she seems a bit off. You might be telling me that you're all right, but I need to be thinking she seems a bit different. So maybe I need to be checking up on you more and just like trying to get you to open up a bit more, because most people do suffer in silence. So we just got to be picking up on these little signs.
It goes back to what we were saying in our last conversation. We've been kind of programmed to say we are strong, we have the ability to get on and carry on with it. That goes back to some of the root issues of slavery, where we ask ourselves the question, do Black lives really matter? Do we as individuals realize that our lives really matter? For me, when Monica said that a few weeks back, I have to pause. I was like, wow, that's a very powerful statement.
Absolutely.
Because if you yourself, if you ask yourself that question, and if you answer authentically yes or authentically no, you got to do something about it. Because Black Lives Matter is an individual thing. It's an individual philosophy. I cannot be sitting down here saying Black Lives Matter when I look at myself. I am doing nothing for my community, nothing for myself that can make a difference. The video Miss Meady posted today about the 5 points for Black community to move on to the next level. Don't drop your pants down, pick up the litter. We don't know how important it is, but it is very important, because that's what make up the human being. I like all the points that we've made around mental health.
About the video as well, what I like what he did, he explained the reason behind what
Yes.
they did. You know, in terms of having the trousers below the behind. You understand? That's the reason why that happened, is because in prison they take the belts away, and the lower it is, the lower person you are in prison. So he made sure he point out the reasons behind all these different 6 points that he made, which was, I believe, was really good. But one of the things I thought he should have added to that is we as women need to be more responsible for ourselves and stop belittling ourselves. Let's take, for instance, the rap scene. When you look at the rap video, the way the women carry themselves. For me, my daughters watching that, I wouldn't want them to watch it, because that's not a good example for a woman. I think one of the points that he needed to make is about us women. We need to take responsibility for ourselves and stand up strong.
Now, I was just going to say, Tasha was talking about that a couple of weeks ago, about like self-love, because a lot of things come out of us lacking self-love and not knowing how to. So I remember that's the point that she was talking about. I don't know.
Just about how important it is that we've actually got to be doing affirmations every day. We've got to start bigging ourselves up, start believing in ourselves, so that we've got that whole self-worth.
Yes.
So then we can actually start helping each other, even with like your friends, start complimenting them, things like that. It all helps with our mental well-being, and just taking time out for yourself, really, just doing what makes you happy, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone.
Yeah, because I was just linking it with, if we do that now, and then we begin to kind of recognize who we are and have love for ourselves, then we would be more aware of like not doing certain things that would harm ourselves. Because especially certain age groups, like when you're in your late teens, you are a lot more vulnerable I would say emotionally vulnerable. And at that time, a lot of the times, depending on how you were raised or what kind of environment you were in, you're more likely to do things that maybe you don't agree with, but you don't love yourself enough yet for you to say, oh, I don't want to do, or I shouldn't do it, or this and that.
But sometimes it's following the crowd, though, isn't it? It's like they're just following other people just to fit in.
We need to stop selling ourselves short and set our standards high. There's nothing wrong for a woman to set her standards high. Have some self-respect.
And goes for men as well, though.
Exactly. Another point to that video we're making reference to is the mental health. It comes in different shapes and forms, because why would you know that dragging your trousers below your bum line is a fashion? Calling yourself the N word or the B word is a fashion. I think we've been deceiving ourselves, telling ourselves that, oh, we're trying to claim it back. What are you claiming back? Belittling yourself is claiming back. For me, that is psychosis right there. How can I be calling myself the B word and I said I'm going to claim back the B word? I think that was another point that he made in the video as well, where he talks about education, isn't it? Educate yourself. Not everybody can go to school, but for goodness sake, everything is in a book. There are videos. Instead of watching videos that will not empower your life, find videos that will empower your life. YouTube is full of it.
Yeah.
You have so many motivational speakers. Black and white.
There's no more excuses, because
there's no more excuses.
The technology is just a tap away. Stop making excuses and get on with it.
I like that. I like that. One of my research I did with the Institute of Race Relationship UK linked mental health to poverty, social inequalities, asylum seeker, which Aretha rightly pointed out. And with asylum seekers, it is estimated that 51% are reported that physical health got worsened since arriving in the UK, depending on where they come from. They are diagnosed with respiratory problems, gastric ulcers, and muscular pain. The research also shows that access to healthcare is a huge barrier. Language barrier is the issue. If community is the issue, if lack of job or immigration paper is the issue, what does the report mean by that? If you have all of these barriers, blockage or barriers, you don't have access to registration, you cannot register, you cannot have contract. There are processes in the UK, there are lots of paperwork that one needs to administer. And then poor continuity of care, meaning, let's say you have access, you go to a doctor, you're feeling a bit fuzzy. You know something is not right with your psychology, but you don't have a continuity of care because you cannot see the right doctor or the same doctor the next time you go there. And the worst thing is when you are suffering from any form of mental health, even at the starting stage, you want that consistency. So if you go to a GP today, you at least you're expecting to see that same GP in a continuous manner. You don't want to see a GP today. For those who don't know what GP is, it's general practitioner. A GP today and then tomorrow a different one and then the next time a different one. It's not good for the individual growth. And then the report also talked about language barrier and gave a 2010 survey. I know it's a long time ago. I've not been able to get the latest survey, but it says 23% inpatients are from BAME community. BAME community meaning the Black Asian ethnic minority. It said the admission for Blacks are 6 times higher than the average rates. And then discrimination, which we've covered within the system, is super strong. And the report also talk about compulsory detainment under the mental health legislation. What that means is you go in there, maybe it's just minor headache, maybe you just need a rest. As one of us said, you might be going through something. You've prayed about it, you've talked about it, but you said, oh, let me go and check. Then you get detained and you get sectioned because they have a legislation that your type of feeling might be in line with. So they automatically put you on that legislation and sectioned you without even most of the time tested or try to help you out.
There's a lack of when you go in and you say I'm dealing with stress or I'm feeling this or I'm feeling that way, there's a lack of recommendation for you to go and seek therapy or for you to even get therapy. It's almost like that is never an option. It's like they would either just say, oh, well, would you like a signal? Okay, take the signal, and then after 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks you come back, or it'll be like, oh, take this medication. But there's a lack of trying to offer therapy as an option. Do you know what I mean? And so that would kind of add to the findings of what you're saying. If they don't offer therapy and they automatically, the only 2 options that seems to be the only option that's offered is either you go straight into a mental institution or you're told to go home and deal with it on your own. So by the time you come back the next time, your case has gone worse than before because now you might have tried to self-medicate and then you come back again, you're like, I don't feel right, something don't feel good, I'll be depressed or this, or I've had a lot of anxiety. And after a while, like you said, after a period of time of you trying to cope with it on your own, that's what ends up happening. You end up having stronger feelings or worsened symptoms, which can then lead to you being sectioned or being detained.
And the doctors also have a way of to give you a prescription rather than getting to the root of the problem. They would say, okay, I tell you what, why don't you take this for a couple of weeks, come back and see me, and then we'll have another talk. Then it might be too late. The person might commit suicide.
Or even become addicted to the drugs.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because most of those drugs, what it does is it makes you feel super better and you think it's for your own good. So you want more and then more. So the dose increases. Something that you're supposed to take for 6 weeks or 3 weeks, you started taking it every month and you become reliant on that drug.
Absolutely.
Like sleeping pills for those who struggle with their sleeping.
Another fact finding from the Institute of Race Relations, it says that 29% of Black people are more likely to be forcibly restrained, 50% more likely to be placed in seclusion and diagnosed as psychotic. And then the CQC, which stands for Care Quality Commission, they concluded that 15% of Black people were given the CTO, which is the compulsory treatment order, back in 2012. Fast forward to 2019, again, I haven't got the statistics in front of me, but with all this COVID that is going on, people losing their job, could you imagine how that number will look like today or in 6 months' time? And another interesting fact that I found is that African and Caribbean descents, the report says they are 50% are more likely to be referred to mental health service by the police. So if you're caught by the police, maybe for basic things, you argue with them, they can take you in. As you know, some of us, when we talk, we gesticulate a lot. We use our hands. That's what that means. We do that. Oh, I ain't doing this. Oh, don't touch me. They just write a note to say you're crazy. Just for shaking your head and doing this. Because it's in our culture. We talk with our hands. We're a very expressive being.
Yeah.
So 50%.
My gosh, that is very high.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
That is extremely high. That's
50,
crazy.
50%. So one has to be careful. But then again, it's such a sad statistics after looking at all of these.
It is.
Because Floyd, he did the opposite. He was calm.
Honestly.
He didn't fight. He didn't do the black thing.
No, he followed the protocol.
He followed the protocol, what Mama has told him. When they stop you, don't fight, don't shout, don't wrinkle your head, don't do this and that, don't put your hands, whatever. He followed, but what's happened to him at the end of the day? So it's kind of a catch-22. It's a lose-lose.
Yeah, you can't win.
You cannot win.
And you know, that causes a lot of anxiety for people. I don't know for you guys, but for me, I remember we spoke about this in our, like, on our first show. And it's like seeing all of these things of people who, what we perceive as they've done everything the way that you would have done it, or the right way to do it. And then you see that happens to them. That gives you a lot of anxiety, even if you didn't have anxiety before. And then having to now try to kind of explain to yourself, to your brain, oh, but that was a one-off. It won't happen to somebody else you love or you know, or it won't happen to you. That is a lot of stress. And I was saying that, like, COVID is, okay, I'm not generalizing that it hasn't been stressful for every other ethnic group, but I feel like they have to, there's a certain thing where they need to recognize that I feel like the Black community have dealt with the extra elements of it, because now we have been able to kind of tap into more of like discrimination that's been happening on top of us dealing with COVID like everybody else.
Yes.
And then all these talks now of the Black Lives Matter and people having to speak about these in companies, it meant that we ourselves have to have tough conversations to accept certain things to ourselves that maybe for a long time we pushed aside as well, and we didn't even really know we needed to speak about. So now not only are we speaking about it with ourselves and with each other, we're speaking about it with other communities, and then we are seeing it, and then we're dealing with it on a daily basis.
Yes.
Those of us who have children now, we're recognizing this path. It does bring down your morale, and that in itself can trigger a lot of mental health issues. Even if you didn't have any like hereditary mental health or anything like that, just from what's happening in society, that in itself can cause that.
That's very true. And I like the touch points as well about individual awareness or awakening. We should stop being complacent. Gone are the days when you were like them and us. There's no longer them and us. We're a human race. Exactly. We should pay attention to our health, be it the mental health, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health. Because I think for so long we've taken our health for granted. I'm sorry, I have to touch base on the slave roots. It's because of that impartation of, oh, you're strong, oh, you are beautiful. I like all of those affirmation, but you got to do something about it. You do not just say, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am physically, mentally, whatever, spiritually. All those information, they are absolutely right. But darling friends, if you are feeling fuzzy, seek help. Find somebody you can trust and start talking.
That is strength. Seeking help is strength.
Yeah. Don't see it as a weakness.
It don't see it as a weakness at all.
Being strong is not dealing with tough times and you sitting in silence suffering. No, being strong is actually acknowledging, having that kind of awareness for you to acknowledge, you know what, I'm strong, I know I'm strong, I know how far I can take, and I know that I'm dealing with something at the moment that is beyond what I'm normally able to deal with. So I need to go and find help. You know, I think to me that is strength.
Yeah, sometimes you got to put your pride aside and actually seek the help that you need before it gets too late and it excels to like another level. So it's better if you just do it straight off, get help straight away, and then just get better from there. Really, take every step at a time.
Yeah. So I think eating healthy is a good, a healthy, balanced diet is
definitely.
Because if you feed the brains, I believe the right chemicals will be released in your body. That mental illness that you're suffering with should be able to calm down, and it would help the situation. So we exercise, eating healthy, and sharing your problems with someone.
Gonna add, and also sleeping. Like nowadays, a lot of us spend a lot of times on YouTube videos, which can be good to a certain level. But I feel like we have to begin to now recognize you need a certain amount of hours every night to sleep for your body to regain that strength that it needs for every single day. So this whole idea of team no sleep, I think that's very silly.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very silly. Unless you have reasons like you have a newborn or you have young children that then only allows you to nap in between 2 hours here, 4 hours here, then that can be understood. But a lot of young people are doing all these nights, especially now with Zoom as well. I know we're on Zoom and Zoom's been amazing. But a lot of people that I'm on certain like groups on WhatsApp, and every single day from 11 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning, people are on Zoom. So I'm just wondering, when are you sleeping? How are you taking care of your mental health? You need sleep. If you're not sleeping properly, you won't be eating properly. You won't be thinking properly. Your mood swings will be all over the place. Exactly. So it's almost like we need to make sure that we sleep. It's nice to speak to people, but no, turn off Facebook, turn off Instagram, turn off Zoom, go to sleep. Have a certain hour. You say, I sleep at this time every single night. My body needs this many amount of hours.
Absolutely.
And typically they say 5 or 6 hours. Other people might need 8.
Yeah, they say like 8. 8 is like the perfect amount, because then it gives your body that time to recover. So you literally need to sleep at least 8 hours a day. And then just focus on like even simple things of taking time out and relaxing. Just let your body relax. Even if you're listening to like meditation or anything, just music, just listen to your body. Just you'll be able to hear like signs of what needs help and things like that. Just take time out for yourself, gather your thoughts, refocus, be grateful for like everyday things.
Absolutely. And there's a research that said that sleep deprivation causes mental issue, causes mental illness.
Exactly.
Oh, it does.
So sleep is so important. People don't realize, we need it, especially like when you sleep, the blood circulation, it helps you to build blood. It helps so much. It relaxes the brains. You releases certain hormones, and people don't understand. It's like, I don't know, like we said, we need to educate ourselves on these topics.
It goes back, for me, it goes back to educating. Even myself, I am guilty here when it comes to sleeping. Only 24 hours ago.
Admit it.
No, I'm confessing.
Claiming it.
Time to confess.
Claim it now.
I was like back to back. And do you know, my digestive system could not even work. I was paying less attention to it. I can only eat fruits. Because of the COVID, the market was shut. So we didn't have access to the markets to buy fish and that kind of stuff. So I got myself some nice tilapia. Don't even go there. Because I was so eager. There is this restaurant, I'm promoting it because the Black Business Classic in Birmingham. Check it out. Classic with a K. KLASSIC or whatever. Classic.
Is that in Juriquota by Snow?
Yeah.
They're amazing. Their fish is amazing.
So I know how to make their pepper sauce.
We've been there, Tasha.
Oh, I did the pepper sauce, no joke, because I lacked sleep. I could not enjoy my food. What you guys are saying is so true. I started eating. And all of a sudden, the upper part of my stomach started getting full up. We've been locked down for how many? 4 months? And I'm eating some good food now. And I cannot get it down.
You can't even stomach it.
I cannot even stomach it. So I left it. I came to bed. And I said, you know what? I got to stop. Because if even I cannot even enjoy the food, you go to the market. So when a Black woman goes to the market, it means business.
You go and it's serious.
Exactly. Girls, I think I started sleeping from 9 o'clock. I woke up 1 o'clock. I went to get to bed 2 o'clock and I woke up 6 o'clock. I went back to bed and then my 7:30 alarm came on. And then I turned the alarm off and I dozed off again.
Wow.
Your body needed it.
Yeah, you need it.
Could you imagine? The reason why I supported your take on this conversation about mental health and sleepiness is because I have experienced it. When I woke up this morning, revitalized, because I have my to-do list when I'm doing my job. all my to-do lists I tick as I go along. I was so tired to follow my to-do list this week. Today, my brain was relaxed. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm reading emails. It makes sense.
Such a difference, though, isn't it? Just that sleep, how much it can change.
We're not experts in this stuff. This is just recommendation and personal experiences and some of the research we've done.
We are experts in our personal experiences and life experiences.
Yeah. We want to help you guys. We want you guys to have good health. We want the mental health issue to be reduced in our community. We've got too many things to deal with. We don't want mental health to be part of the conversation. So we're pleading to you, love yourself. Black Lives Matters only if you acknowledge it.
Yes, my life matters.
You've got to say my Black Life Matter.
Yes.
And when you say that, you should be convicted because you got to check yourself. You got to take care of your health, your mind. There's a tradition in the Yoruba culture talking about don't let people into your mind, into your head. Because if you let people into your head, they will take over your entire body. I translate that adage to everything in life. I don't let trouble into my mind. I don't let negativity into my mind. I am pursuing happiness. I am pursuing health. When something is not going right, as Tasha or one of the ladies said, your body will tell you automatically when to stop. It will tell you, don't ignore your body. Your body is the best doctor on the planet Earth. We can only talk as much as possible. We are here to have this family conversation. We want to encourage you to continue this conversation.
I remember last week we were speaking about relationships and mental health. And today I was just thinking about it and I thought to myself, you know what? There's a lot of this ideology of like Black love and, you know, like couple and relationshipness and being together. But today I thought to myself, you know what? We need to start saying Black love cannot matter until my mental, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say
Until
you have to take care of
you have to take care of yourself first before you can love others.
Exactly. So we have to stop seeking partnership or relationships thinking that will heal my issue. I feel low with my low self-esteem. If only I had a man, if only I had a woman. You need to stop that. Work on yourself first, and then, because if you have issues, you go and find somebody else, they have issues.
That's a whole heap of issues there.
Explosion. It's an explosion.
Exactly.
You don't know what to happen.
You don't need a man to define you. You don't need a woman to define you. Learn to love you and be you.
This is true because we always a fixer, especially the ladies. We always fixers. We're trying to look out there to fix issues. I think it's our womanness. We have that motherhood crying out all the time. We go out looking for problems. We go out looking for somebody with an issue or challenges. If we don't find the worst case scenario, we've not yet arrived.
He's too boring. He doesn't have issues.
But then sometimes issues find you. You're stuck.
Sometimes issues do find you.
I like the analogy of the flight announcements where it says, put on your oxygen mask first before even your own child.
Exactly.
Because if you don't have your oxygen mask, how can you save somebody? And another encouraging point as well, for folks who are maybe a psychologist, a doctor of any sort, please be a mentor in your community. Please help your community. Let us don't give up on our community. I know it can be challenging sometimes because oftentimes we're taken for granted. We're not appreciated in our Black communities. We have Black on Black bantering going on. I am pleading, me and my crew, me and my ladies, me and my queens, we are pleading to you. Be a mentor in any community. If you can take care of one person, you've done a lot. We are here today because we're not looking for a crowd. We are looking for that one person that might be going through challenges, that might not have